Morning is from the book of Isaiah, and through this Advent season, we're going to be tracking through Isaiah's story. So we're in the book of Isaiah, chapter 2, and it's verses 1 through 5. And overall, we're talking about peace. Isaiah, being one of the prophets from the Old Testament, that's a big piece of what he was inviting people to is to stop with the warring ways of being with one another, stop with the harming of people and he was inviting the Israelites to be a people who found this kind of peace. So we're gonna get into talking about what that means a little bit more. But again, it's chapter 2. It's verses 1 through 5. It says, "This is what Isaiah, son of Amoz, says concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and all nations will stream to it. Many peoples will come and say, 'Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his paths.' The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nations will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. Come, descendants of Jacob, let us walk in the light of the Lord." It's the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. So, I don't know if any of you all are relieved, but it's like it's past Thanksgiving and it's Advent now, so we can start to talk about Christmas. We can start to talk about Advent, right? Like, is that no? Is this like anybody's like? Is there anybody like closet Christmas fans that are like they know it's socially inappropriate to talk about Christmas in July, but like they want to? No one? No. Okay, but we can talk about Christmas now. The radio stations have changed format, right? Like it's all Christmas songs on here all the way until Christmas Day, right? And the only important thing that matters right now, and the only important question that I could bring up, I think, is what do you want for Christmas? Like, right? Like, and I mean that like a real question, like, and especially you young people, like what do you want for Christmas? And parents, take notes. And any of you, what do you want for Christmas? Henry, what? Right, that's a video game that teaches you how to play the guitar, I think, is sort of. All right, yeah. An Xbox, all right. And now, Dad, she means like a real one, not like a box with an X on it, okay? Like, Lincoln, what do you want for Christmas? I'll come to you. Oh, goodness, Dad, help out. A bike. Oh, absolutely. Evelyn, what did you have down here? A new phone for Christmas. Uh-oh. Anybody else? What do you want for Christmas? Anybody brave? Like, say it now, because Santa Claus can hear you. Like, we're in church. That's anybody? Any other kids? No? That's all right. That's okay. Yeah, like, that's kind of the spirit of Advent, you all. And that's where you may not be aware of this, but Christmas does not begin until Christmas Day. All right? Like, this is something that I try to make sure everybody is aware of. Our culture has forgotten it, but Christmas doesn't begin until Christmas Day, and then it's a season after Christmas Day. That's all Christmas. What we are in right now is called Advent. It's where we're waiting, where we're anticipating, where we're wanting for that present, right? Like, and I mean, in our house, I don't know if Santa Claus has heard it or not, but man, Parker about a month ago put an envelope in the mailbox to Santa that said he wanted a GoPro on it. And I embarrassed him. I'm sorry. But like that's a big deal. Like, and there's this anticipation and this expectation that comes along with it. And we long for things a lot of times, right? Like, and like a new phone or new doodad that's going to make life easier. That's what you tell yourself, so you have an excuse to buy it. right? Like, but we long for things in this season. As we're going through Advent, we're gonna look into that longing. Like, what is it that we long for? And what is it appropriate to be longing for as we're going through Advent? So this week we're talking about peace. You may have heard that echoed already in the lighting of the candle that represents peace. And then in the scriptures, there's a theme of peace. And then we're going to move on over the weeks to come to talk about hope and joy and trust and love. These are all things that we as human beings, we long for them. We long for them, especially peace. As we get into it today, like it shouldn't be a surprise, like longing for peace. And I know you kids that are in school, especially, like that can be a place where you find no peace at all, right? Like I don't know if any of you kids ever had a bully like that, right? Like if you had a bully or knew somebody that was getting bullied, like there's no peace in that situation. There's no comfort to be found. Like your whole day is trying to figure out like which path the bully is going to take and which path you need to take so you don't run into him, right? Like that can be a place where there is no peace whatsoever. And I know I was talking to somebody, I forget who it was or what it was all about, but the funniest comment I have ever heard, they were talking about a class that didn't have a really strong leader. And they said that the class had gone full on Lord of the Flies, all right. Like, and if you know that's an old book for you kids that are younger. Like, there's a book you'll read going through school, and it's about a group of kids that gets like shipwrecked on an island. And then it's only kids, and then it just turns into this crazy situation, and the kids are at war with one another. And that's what it was. I thought it was descriptive, and I have known classes to be like that in the past, where there's a pecking order, and the strong ones bully the younger ones, and it just was really funny. So school can be a place where there is no peace. Even in our homes can be a place where we struggle to find peace. And there are different seasons of life where relationships are strained and where it's like living in a war zone sometimes, and that's reality. We just had Thanksgiving dinner, right? Like if any of you all traveled and had the real nice Thanksgiving with your family, and then like who's ready for counseling or therapy, right? From after the Thanksgiving dinner. That's real, folks. Like their counseling appointments are made because of unpacking some baggage that happened over the holidays. That's all real. And in our world, I mean, I'm not surprising anybody to say that there is a lack of peace in our world, right? Like you turn on the news, there's war happening all over the place. There's people that are suffering. It's just a reality that we live in, and we long for that peace, though. That's that, right? We long for that, and peace. It's not just a lack of conflict. Okay, so peace is not just a lack of fighting, because you cannot be like punching someone and still very much be at war with them, right? Or not be shooting at someone. We, in the United States, we went through this whole time period called the Cold War, right? Like there was no fighting going on, but the world was very much still at war, right? Like that's a reality. So peace doesn't mean just lack of conflict. What I'm talking about when I say peace is it comes from a Hebrew word. The word is shalom. And I know I say this a lot. I say it a lot. All right, but it's so important, and it's so easy to forget and let go of. But this shalom, it's peace with justice, right? So there's equality that's part of that. There's justice that's part of it. There's relationship that's part of it, right? Like it's peace with justice. That's what we long for, right? When we send out Christmas cards that have a picture of a log cabin with a blanket of snow on it, right? Like that's that image of that peace where just everything kind of is okay. That's what we're longing for. And the question then becomes, how do we find it? Right? Everybody on this planet, I would almost guarantee that if you could really get in a deep conversation with them and say, hey, do you really, would you like for it to not be conflict in your life? Would you like for there to be not war going on around you? Everybody, I would bet money that 99.99% of people would say yes. We don't want to fight. We just want a safe place for our kids to grow up, right? Like that. And yet that lack of peace turns into that fighting. So how do we back out of this? How do we get away from it? And how do we begin to live into the peace that we know that Christ is all about? Because that's what Jesus was all about. That's what got him killed, actually. He was about restoration of people. He was about bringing healing to people. He was about equality. He was about putting people on the same playing field, on the same level. And the people with the money and the people with the authority, they didn't like that at all. That's what led Jesus to the cross. How do we find this peace? And there's an old joke that it's about Donatello. Now, I gotta ask for a confession. All right, now when I said that, how many of you thought of a Ninja Turtle with a purple mask? All right, yep, nope, not that Donatello. Okay, this is Donatello from the 1500s, the artist. He was an artist with Michelangelo and Leonardo, and those are not Ninja Turtles either. They are, but they're not. All right, so we're talking about the artists. All right, somebody asked Donatello one day. He was an amazing sculptor. He made all these and sculpted horses and stuff. And they asked Donatello, how is it that you have the ability to sculpt a horse out of a block of marble? How can you do that? And it is kind of mind-blowing if you think about it. How can an artist create? We've got a few of them around, and I would imagine the artists in the room would just say, I don't know, it just kind of happens, right? But how they asked Donatello, how is it that you can carve this magnificent sculpture of a horse out of a block of stone? And Donatello, he thinks about it for a second, and he says, well, you just start little by little, and you chip away everything that's not a horse, right? And that's kind of half a joke, but at the same time, this is a life lesson on how to find this kind of peace that we all long for. As we look into our own lives, and that is the absolute only real rule in this, is you can't look at somebody else's life and say, you lack peace, therefore you need to change this, and this, because that's not peace. That's being at war with somebody, okay? So the only way that this can happen is we look into our own lives, look into our own situation, our own relationships, and begin to chip away at everything that's not a horse or that's not peace, right? We begin to little by little chip away, little by little invite healing into broken relationships, little by little, and begin to be curious about why the relationships that we have are the way that they are. And then little by little and through a lifetime of self-reflection. And how many of you are excited about that? This is work that lasts a lifetime, right? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But if you want to find this kind of peace that's talked about in the scriptures, it takes that kind of work. It's why is it that when so-and-so says this to me, it makes me feel like I'm 5 years old again and getting scolded, right? Or why is it that when I'm in this situation, I feel this way and I know that I shouldn't, but yet I find myself there? If you want to find that peace, it takes work sometimes with a counselor, with a therapist, with a spiritual director. It takes work to begin to chip away at those things that aren't peace. That way we can be people at peace. That way we can be people who are an example of peace for the rest of this world. That's the invitation in this. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. As we come to the table this morning, we're going to share together in communion, and I want to invite you to allow this to maybe be a starting point for you. If this kind of peace, like I'm talking about, is something that you're interested in or something that you've longed for a long, long time, like this moment, it can be a starting point for you. And Jesus, the bread represents Jesus' body, right? That was broken. Jesus' body, it was broken. He was crucified. And it was broken because of a lack of peace. We take this bread, and it's a symbol of Christ. Jesus' body broken, that we take in and we invite to be a part of who we are. We believe that through inviting that kind of closeness, that kind of relationship with Christ, that begins the transformation that leads to peace. We remember the cup. And the juice that's in this cup, it represents Jesus' blood. And that's blood that's shed for forgiveness. It's blood that's shed as an example of just the brokenness that can exist in this world. We remember that this kind of transformation that we're inviting in our lives, it takes sacrifice. It takes our willingness to let things go. It takes our willingness to invite transformation into our lives, and that does take sacrifice. As we come to the table today, I want to remind you that in the Methodist Church, we celebrate an open table. You don't have to be a member of the church. You don't have to be a member of the denomination or anything. If you are a follower of Christ and want to take communion, please come and have communion. And I want to remind you also that we're going to do this by intinction. So I'll break a piece of bread off for you, and you take that bread and you dip it in the cup, and then go ahead and take both of the elements together. Feel free to use the kneelers if you want to kneel and pray, or make your way back to your seats. And we'll start in the front and go row by row to the back. And I didn't ask anybody beforehand, but Henry, will you help me serve communion this morning? Thank you. I put it on my children when I forget to ask somebody. So the table is set. And in this moment, we remember that this is Christ's body broken for each and every one of us, and it's Christ's blood shed. And we invite God to be present in this moment as we take communion. Amen. Yes.